Hi there, I'm Jonny Rose from Lead Generation Nation, and in this interview, I'll be speaking to the CEO of Crystal Knows, the personality assessment app, which allows B2B lead generators to know the personality of the person that they're prospecting and trying to generate leads from. There's a link right in the description of this video, so please do sign up and see what all the fuss is about, this exciting new app. Hello, Drew, and welcome to Lead Generation Nation.
Hi, how you doing, Johnny?
Very well, sir. So listen, something I ask all of our guests here on Lead Generation Nation is, who are you and why should we listen to you for the next 20 minutes?
Well, my name is Drew D'Agostino. I'm the founder and CEO of Crystal, also known as Crystal Knows, which just kind of happened out of the domain we happened to get. Why should you listen to me? I don't know. Sometimes I question why I should listen to myself. But for about 4 years, we've been building what I think is the best free personality assessment available on the internet. And off of that, we've built tools to predict people's personalities, which is often used for sales and marketing. So that's taken off quite a bit.
Now, that sounds very neat. Personality assessment tools. Could you delve in further to exactly what that entails? And more importantly for our audience, Drew, how that links to B2B lead generation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so as a lot of your listeners probably have noticed, personality data has kind of become this second wave of information, that's available or to find out about someone, especially when you're having a meeting with them, working with them, or they become your customer. So after you know things that you'd find on LinkedIn, like where have they worked and what's their role and what has been their experience. Knowing somebody's personality is this whole second step into the more qualitative world. Things like how are they with risk? Are they risk tolerant or are they risk averse? Are they someone who's more big picture oriented or detail oriented? So there's a lot of these valid and very real personality differences that are oftentimes more difficult to understand. So what we try to do is give our users and customers the best tools to get an accurate personality profile about somebody who they're working with or selling to.
Now, Drew, how did you come up with the idea of Crystal Knows and this idea of assessing people's personalities?
Originally, it was out of curiosity. I had a company up in Boston, Massachusetts. It was an event software company, and I was the CTO. And I had my co-founder and I there. We had an executive coach who had taught us all about. It was DISC at the time, just the personality framework. And all of a sudden, it was like taking blinders off and starting to see all of my professional relationships through the lens of these personality differences. And I'm not going to nerd out into that whole psychological realm, but I became a really big enthusiast in applying psychology in business and trying to separate out what is just kind of confirmation bias and horoscope from what is real valid psychological difference and how it affects behavior, and realize that there's a lot of things that are really important that we often don't fully pay attention to. So I originally just was creating Crystal as this small tool that could predict someone's personality because I thought, hey, maybe you can do this. And I built the extension for LinkedIn. That was the first way I kind of applied machine learning and natural language processing, by combining the psychology with technology. So built the first version of it, could pretty accurately predict someone's personality with about 85% confidence. And off of that, people really, really seemed to gravitate towards the tool and they started sharing it with each other. So it kind of pulled me into it.
Drew, you said just there being able to predict someone's personality with 85% confidence, certainly in the early iterations. It's improved so much more now, and I know as a user. What do you mean exactly by predicting someone's personality? What are personality traits that Crystal Knows can surface?
So Crystal is it's still based in a personality framework called DISC. And what DISC is, it's basically a model to describe differences in behavior. And we break that up down into 16 ways, or the simpler way to do is 4, D, I, S, and C. Those are called archetypes. So when somebody fills out a personality assessment on Crystal, they get one of those 16 archetypes. And based on which one you fall in, you generally have these behavioral tendencies which are clustered together. Like people who are on the C end of things tend to be very logical and analytical, also tend to be more reserved in conversation and don't trust people as quickly. So there's a lot of these behaviors that tend to be clustered together, and those are validated by a lot of scientific research. So if you can identify what somebody's primary archetype is, you can make a lot of assumptions and predictions about how they're going to communicate and behave. So when I say that we're 85% accurate, what that really means is that when we have enough data to analyze about somebody, so say from a LinkedIn profile or a resume, we can about 85% of the time pin them into the right quadrant of the disc. So kind of in the right ballpark. Say this person is likely to act in this way in most situations. So if they're towards the D end of the disc, we know this is likely to be a more assertive person who's going to try to lead conversations, not have a lot of patience, and try to be very results focused instead of really get down to the details. So there's a lot of, once you kind of identify roughly where somebody is on that disc, you can make a lot of predictions about their behavior.
Drew, what are some of the use cases or scenarios which would lead someone to using Crystal? It's one thing to know someone's personality, but how is that useful for someone working in B2B lead gen?
It's useful on a couple different levels. So number one, I would say that probably the most important thing is it's an overall mindset of empathy. So when you are going into a conversation with somebody for the first time, or going into a meeting, or sending an email, our natural tendency is to assume the person is just like us. So we're going to try and approach that would work with us. Meanwhile, that's probably true for only roughly 25% of the population. Like for me, for example, I want someone just to send me one sentence email, just get right to the point and skip all the subtleties. If I go into that in every scenario, I'm probably going to miss the mark with like three-fourths of my leads. So the first step is just to overall think about how the other person prefers to communicate and how they prefer to deal in business. And that happens to be really strongly correlated with personality. So first step is to just recognize this person is likely different from me. And then that kind of begs the question, how are they different from me? And that's where Crystal can help. It can help tell you, here's how this person differs from you in certain ways. Here's how they're similar to you in certain ways. And then now that you know that, question is, all right, what do I do? And that's where Crystal also helps. And once you kind of know these differences, Crystal can provide you coaching recommendations. Say, all right, here's how you want to write the intro of your email. You should use a little bit more formality. Use phrases like this. If you're trying to discuss pricing, for example, know that this person is going to want to have some small talk before you get into business to make them feel comfortable. Like there's a lot of recommendations, just as if you're talking to somebody who kind of knows this person already. That's kind of the role Crystal's playing. It's like a coach for every conversation.
And I love the way you describe it there, a coach for every conversation. That really encapsulates what it's doing there. I myself have been a benefactor of Crystal. I've been using it for coming up to a year now. I discovered it around about March 2018, and the version of Crystal I'm using, although there's a web app and there are various plugins, no doubt, I'm using the Chrome plugin, which allows you to look at someone on LinkedIn and it tells you their personality and, as you said, coaches you on what's the best way to DM them, what words should you use, and all that kind of thing. Could you delve in a bit more on what the suite of tools are which are available to people who use Crystal Knows?
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like three layers of tools. You got like our free tools, our single player tools, and our multiplayer tools. That's how I refer to them. So the free tools, it's a regular personality assessment where anybody can sign up, take a test, and then get a really robust personality profile for themselves, and then also have access to all their coworkers so they can build stronger relationships and understand their coworkers better. That's pretty much how Crystal grows, because we have the best free personality assessment platform available. The next step of tools is mostly for people that are in communication roles. So think about sales, marketing, recruiting, leaders, and like executives. Anybody who's regularly having conversations with people that they don't know, those are the people who use our Chrome extension and our personality predictions on the dashboard. So that's when Crystal's doing the thing that I was explaining before, where it's taking information that someone's written and using that to predict a personality type. So that happens to be really useful in B2B roles or similar kind of marketing or customer-facing types. And then there's this third layer, which is a smaller percentage of people. And those are the ones who are kind of Crystal power users. And they generally tend to be in consulting or coaching or training functions where they're using the free tools, they're using the Chrome extension, but then they're also creating reports. And it's really, it's like an advanced report. So you can take 2 people from any company or 4 people if they're in a group, put them together into a report, and then Crystal will tell you, here's what the group dynamic is likely to be, and here's where you might have gaps or strengths or weaknesses. So that's like a very powerful way to use Crystal. It's also just a little more complex. But people who are in functions where they're really thinking about relationships and building teams and effective communication, they can use reports on top of the other ones. So those are the main suite.
Now, Drew, as the founder and CEO of Crystal Knows, no doubt you hear a lot of customer stories of the way you envision how people might use Crystal Knows, but they also feed back to you how they're using it. What are some interesting stories that you're hearing from the front line of how B2B lead generators are using Crystal?
I mean, you hear a lot of stories all over the place. So the funniest stories that come up are when people use it for their husband or wife or significant other. It's generally the first person that they'll look up in Crystal and get a report, especially a relationship report of how they could best communicate with each other. So everyone tends to use it first for their personal life, and then they expand it into their business role. So I hear a lot from very recently I had a person who's in a recruiting role in New York explaining how they are pretty much like using Crystal as it's a tool on one end for them to have better conversations with people they're outreach that they're speaking with, but then they're also putting together these reports before every meeting and like every interview that their clients have, where Crystal kind of gives them a cheat sheet before the meeting. And I never really referred to it that way. So that actually catered to this whole other feature that we added where you can kind of pick out what your meeting's for and are you on the phone or are you writing an email and what situation is this? And Crystal will give you like very specific advice for that. So that was an example of a customer story that translated into a feature in the product, but that's cool to see.
Now that is very, very cool. Now, Drew, I know that Crystal can often be used in conjunction with other channels, right? So the primary one, or perhaps the very first time Crystal was built for, was LinkedIn. Being able to use it for LinkedIn prospecting. It can also be used with cold email. Are you seeing Crystal being used in any other ways for direct mail or any other lead gen channels? Or is it really just for coaching for cold email and for cold LinkedIn in-mails at this moment?
The three main I'd call communication mediums are written messages, so email or in-mail, meetings, so in-person meetings, and phone calls. So everything you see on Crystal and the dashboard is kind of built around those three channels.
Okay, and with that in mind then, what does the future hold then for Crystal in 2019? So you've built this software, this wonderful free, in part personality predictive sort of data set, really. What are your plans for 2019?
We're working on a lot of, we're pushing forward on both the product front and the business side, or the strategy side. So the product side, we are trying to create more ways to predict personality profiles, kind of like expand the scope of profiles that we can create and then improve the accuracy of them. So doing a lot with other types of data, not just written text, so to predict personalities. So this way we can really easily plug into someone's CRM system or a sales tool or a ATS system and provide them really accurate personalities for all the people in that. So that's on the product side, we're developing a lot in that area. That's a lot of machine learning, a lot of just like big data sets that we're working with. And then on the strategy side, we are working a lot more with these like coaches, consultants, and trainers, people in similar positions to you, who tend to be the loudest evangelists for Crystal. So we're a very, very small team. We're not a big sales and marketing shop as far as headcount goes, but we tend to punch above our weight class. And one of those reasons is that we have this kind of like army of evangelists. So I've kind of made it my personal mission to formalize partnerships with those types of people and give them opportunities to, be affiliates of Crystal and ways for value to go two ways where they can, make money by being distributors of Crystal, and we can also help provide them, new opportunities for clients and things like that. So there's a lot of ways that I'm trying to build relationships and kind of use what we're calling our experts as, that really great army of supporters. And I'm trying to create really good opportunities for them as well. So.
Well, Drew, as a faithful soldier in your army of supporters, it'd be remiss for me not to say there'll be a link below this video on YouTube if you're watching this right now for you to sign up and see Crystal Knows for yourself. Do get it. I highly recommend it. Drew, something I always like to ask people in the B2B lead generation realm, whether they are vendors such as yourself or practitioners, is what else are you doing apart from using your own tool for B2B lead gen? What are some of the ways you're seeing working for your company to set up meetings with the Jonny Roses of this world? Are you finding cold emails what you're largely leading on? Are you using LinkedIn to build brand authority? What's working from you? What are you hearing from your marketing and sales team and your own efforts, Drew?
That's a really great question. We're throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall these days. So Crystal's an interesting case for B2B lead gen because our challenges are different than most startups. We actually have a huge top of our funnel because of all the people that come through the doors at Crystal, and they also happen to be really well qualified leads too, because they're generally people that are in these sales, marketing, recruiting, and management roles who actually can buy our paid products. So we've got this very big group of people, and a lot of times they come from the same companies, so we even have some density within companies. So we're kind of starting with a good funnel. Off of that, we are using a lot of marketing automation, like drip emails, to try to provide little bits of value after they sign up. So a lot of that's going through HubSpot. We have we use a lot of data enrichment to go beyond our own personality data and our own information that we collect on the site. So we're doing, and that's both for technical reasons on our product, but then also for our outreach. So we're using a lot of enrichment companies like Clearbit and Full Contact. Use Sales Navigator quite a bit. I spend like all day in LinkedIn, so that's becoming a very favorite tool for me. So I'm creating lead lists and trying to build lookalike lists and getting recommendations from that. I've just started with some paid acquisition stuff as a constant experiment. So at this point, it's not super efficient for us, but I am starting to see a little bit of movement and trying to get that to work properly. Mostly just because out of curiosity, I want to see if we can use that as a lever. So yeah, a lot of different areas, throwing it at the wall.
Drew, you really are throwing things at the wall there. I felt like that was all three courses there, and I hope, yeah. And I have no doubt that they will begin to yield things, and you'll know which ones are better than others in the fullness of time. Well, Drew, we're coming towards the end of our time together. Thank you for joining us on Lead Generation Nation. Where can people get in contact with you and learn more about the Crystal Tool app?
Best way is email. It's just drew@crystalknows.com. And then if you want to sign up for the free product, and also we have a trial of the paid tools, you can just go to crystalknows.com.
Well, Drew, thank you for joining us at Lead Generation Nation.
Great. This is awesome. Thank you.